I am going to go ahead and get started. Thanks everybody for jumping on today. Our presentation is about building a mobile expense report system using SharePoint Online and Ultimate Forms. So we're going to go ahead and jump in. I am Will Cooper. I am the training coordinator for Infowise. I am also a SharePoint consultant and solutions provider. Basically, I eat and breathe all things SharePoint, and I love any kinds of tools that help me do my job to build solutions in SharePoint. My background is with Microsoft in terms of web development and solutions and things like that. Several years ago, I started to focus very much on SharePoint. Our organization is focused on our main platform, which is Ultimate Forms, and our goal is building a set of tools that's easy to use, requires no programming at all, and it's something that we're always improving on. And these tools are available and deploy completely inside of your SharePoint interface. They're available both for SharePoint Online or for on-premise SharePoint. The solution I'm showing today is for SharePoint Online since it's for mobile users and that type of thing. At the end of the presentation, we are going to have a drawing for an embroidered polo shirt from Infowise that is just for folks inside of the United States for shipping reasons. In terms of questions, we would definitely like those from you. The way you can ask questions is to use the questions interface in GoToWebinar. If I don't get to it right away, please hold on. I do have one of my colleagues who will help to answer those questions, and I'll address some of those also towards the end. Okay, so before we jump into the actual solution, let's talk about some key features that we would like to have in a tool that users would use to submit expenses, in particular through their mobile phone, so they can do it on the go. We want to have a system that's easy to use, both in a desktop interface for when you're at your desk at work, but also we want it to work smoothly if we pull out our phone and we want to submit an expense like a receipt from lunch, that type of thing. We want some automation in here. We'd like to have email alerts go out to request approval, also to notify users when expenses are approved, things like that. We'd like some basic reporting, PDF output, for example, when the expense process is complete. We'd like to have a nice, easy to use dashboard. We need to accommodate for user roles. Naturally, we've got our regular employees, but also we have managers and folks who are actually approving the expenses. So the process, interface, accessibility, things like that need to be a little bit different depending on your role in the process. We want to be able to use the phone camera for the receipts because we're really trying to streamline the process, that type of thing. PDF output for our reports, and we need a system for the manager to give their approval and sign off. So those are key features that we would like to see in a mobile expense report system. So we'll see if we tick those boxes when we're going through our tool in a little bit. Here's just some basic principles in terms of building solutions in SharePoint and also in working with our tools. We tend to want to use a minimum viable product approach. This doesn't mean that we want a bare minimum tool. It just means that we want to get a tool up and running quickly. So we really want to build fast, be able to interact with it, and then adjust and incrementally improve it. We want to move fast. We want to be able to do a basic form easily. And then we want to be able to get the look and feel how we want without having to do any fancy CSS or complex formatting, anything like that. We'd like to make those updates in bite-sized pieces. And as a part of this process, we want to be testing that user interface very early and often. And we'll do that by creating some dummy records and entering those just to make sure that we're on the right track as we build. So this just illustrates my general impression as far as building solutions in SharePoint and in Office 365. The out-of-the-box tools are limited and some functionality doesn't exist at all. It's quite a struggle. And even when using Microsoft-provided platforms such as Power Apps or Power Automate, while those are each powerful tools, there is a lot of complexity. They tend to be developer-oriented, tends to be a longer building process, and you do have to use code snippets and some programming, and it requires some technical knowledge. It's not a fast form building interface or a fast workflow interface. It's tough to use those. So what we're offering and what you can do with Ultimate Forms is a lot faster and easier to work with. It's much more attainable and it provides you a more fluid development process. Okay, as I mentioned, I just want to reiterate, our tools work the same way. They are available both for SharePoint Online and Office 365 or for on-premise SharePoint. So this is an agile development approach. This just kind of illustrates that cycle. We want to set up our form at first, make adjustments to it, publish out those changes, test the process, and take an iterative approach just to prove out our process and incorporate the requirements. Okay, so that's enough of my boring PowerPoint slides. Let's go ahead and jump into this mobile expense report system now. Okay, so I am in an Office 365 site, pretty basic stuff. I've got the quick links tiles to jump me to some different reviews and that type of thing. What's important throughout this whole process is that all of it uses responsive design. And that just means that even on the smaller screen, it's going to adapt and look nice and be attainable for that user as well. So during my presentation, you'll see me toggle into a phone style view, and this is what you can expect to see on your mobile phone. So we're going to start by going through the process from the user interface standpoint, just so you have a sense for what that's like. So first I'll just start off for the desktop user, just to kind of show you what it looks like. What you're going to notice is that I've got a custom form right here in SharePoint. And of course, this does not exist at all normally in the SharePoint interface. And this is what our tools provide. They give you a way to set up a custom form. So this is our expense report. This is what it looks like for the desktop user. I've got an automated function to do some tracking. Naturally, we like to know things such as when the report was created, when it gets submitted, when it's approved, stuff like that. And then we want to have keep track of different statuses. So we've got draft, submitted, approved, canceled, etc. Okay, so that's kind of what it looks like, the custom form for the desktop user. So let's go ahead and look at this from the perspective of the phone user. And I'm just using the developer mode to kind of demonstrate that. So I'm in phone mode, and this is exactly what you would get if you pull out your Android phone or even your iPhone. You can just open your web browser on your phone, and away you go. So imagine, if you will, I'm a service technician, I'm out in the field, and I'm going to grab lunch. I just need to track my expenses. Okay, so I'll put in just a short description, June travel expenses. And I'm just going to put in the name of my manager. Notice for employee that it auto-populated to my name. I'm going to show you a little bit about how that's done later, but obviously we don't need for our users to type that in. We'd like the system to just handle that automatically. Okay, so there's my manager, and now I need to put in expenses. So we need a repeating table. We need a way to have a many-to-one relationship. I have line entries for individual expenses for this report. And this is set up using some of our functionality. It's really easy to do. It's called an associated items list. And what it is just a second SharePoint list that we've associated to this parent list, which is expenses. So I have a list called lines. I'll just say, let's see, my lunch. I just pick my date. This is exactly the UI that you're going to get on the phone. And then I pick from a drop-down. This was for meals. I've got some icons in there just to help things kind of look a little more interesting, provide some contrast. And then I just put the amount for that expense. Notice I've got a lines total. That's auto-calculated. It's going to auto-total based on all my expenses. So one thing that's interesting about this is, put in another one. Instead of the arduous process of kind of saving all this stuff until the end of the month and trying to find all your receipts and get everything together, which is typical in a lot of organizations, this is providing an interface so that your users can take a much easier approach. They can record their expenses on the go throughout the month, and they don't have to wait till the end of the month to do this. So it makes it a lot easier for them. They don't need to save their receipts. They can just take a picture of it right there when they make the purchase, and they don't have to worry about losing those receipts or anything like that. So that's a major improvement for your employees. This is just going to be a lot easier for them to deal with. Okay, so notice the lines total updated. Now, the really cool thing is for attachments. When you're on your phone and you click attachments, this will automatically open up the camera app on your phone. In real time, you can take a picture of that receipt and it will save right to this. Now, because I'm on a computer right now, it's just going to go to my device. So I'm going to attach my receipts that way. But as I say, it will open the camera app and they'll just attach like that. We've kind of got a catch-all notes field. If there's any other information somebody wanted to put, it's just a way to capture that if they want. So rather than just do this all at one time, this can be something where, throughout the trip, the business trip, or throughout the month, however you want to do that, they can just work on that real time. Okay, so basically it's just going to, add to that list, and then I'll go back into this. Okay, wasn't sure if I was going to pull up the right one. Okay, so we've got our receipt attached, and this is in view mode. Once I edit that, I'll show you how it's going to work when I submit. Notice that we can look at the history tracking, and it's going to auto record information as I'm putting things in. So I'm going to submit expenses. So it gives a little note. You can add those into the user interface. So this just says that when the expense report is complete, check submit expenses. So pretty simple, right? Okay, so I'm just going to save. Now at this point, what we want to do is we want to have kind of an auto-generated email. So this is a prompt. We want the manager to automatically get an email that tells them what to do. So I'm going to show you what that looks like real quick. One sec. Sorry, it just takes me a little while to set this up. Okay, so there you go. That's the email. So this automatically tells that manager, whoever's in the manager field, that the expenses were submitted. And when you click on the item, it will dynamically go right to that form. So I don't have to browse around to locate this. That manager can simply tap on that, whether they're on their phone or whether they're going to something, doing it through SharePoint as a desktop user, they can access that item. Okay, so that's kind of how that works. So we got the email, then the manager can go in here. Like I said, they can do this in either mode. Let's just stay there on the desktop. I'm going to go back to that view. So if I go in here and edit. So something interesting happened. I want you guys to take notice. We have configured this form to be dynamic, meaning the display is going to change depending on your role, whether you're an approver or based on the status. This expense report now has been submitted. What we don't want to happen is we don't want for the interface to be editable by users in that process. So you can change the fields depending on what's going on with that. So once the manager is ready to approve, they can flag it as approved and just hit save, and they can enter information for when it's submitted. And that will auto-generate emails as well. So that's kind of what it looks like from the user interface. So let me kind of show you a little bit about the tools that we use and how we're able to set this up. So if I go into here, this is the toolbox for Ultimate Forms. There's quite a lot of things that you can do here. The most important thing in terms of setting up this kind of form, the first thing that you're going to be working with is our form designer tool. And that's the first link and the first option in the screen. So this is where all that stuff is set up. I've set up a couple of tabs, so you are able to do a tab interface. This interface is really easy to work with. I can drag and drop controls onto the form. I can very easily reorder them if I want to. So if I want to drag that into a different position. And then applying styles is easy to do also. So I just wanted to make this section yellow and have a border. All that I had to do to set that up is just pick one of these colors here and hit OK. I did the same thing for border. I put a little padding in there and hit save. Those changes show up real time in this form design tool. I didn't have to do any CSS. I didn't have to do any special coding. I just went into that simple configuration screen and set that up. And I can apply those rules in any part of this form, and I can see exactly how it's going to look as I'm working on it. And I can also do things like have a message that just shows up in a particular case. So I want the users to be notified. Once they've submitted the expense report, that is going to lock down the screen. So I've got a message about that. So in order to set that up, I just put in this fragment, and that's just simple text that you can embed right into the form. And I can put a rule here. And so I just need a couple of rules. So this just says to hide that if the status is submitted, approved, or not equal to submitted, approved, can't. Basically, if it's in draft mode, go ahead and hide that. But if it is submitted or approved or canceled, then I don't want users to modify this section. So I kind of did the same thing with each of those controls. So and that way I can make this message only appear in that situation. And you can apply those same kind of rules to make things such as the status field be only editable by approvers, that type of thing. Then the history section, that's something where I have some actions to automate that. I don't want the user to enter anything here. It's just used to display information back. So I have a couple rules here. One is I don't really need to see that at all on the new form. So I'm just going to hide it always in that case. And then on edit and display, I want to make it be in a read-only mode. So it just will display information to the users. So again, I don't have to do any coding or anything like that. I just am using the rules in this interface. I just did it through configuration. So that's a little bit about the form designer. It's really fun and easy to use, and it does use responsive design. So that really helps a lot in terms of working with the interface. Now, the automation behind this is done through actions. So instead of having to use workflow or having to do anything complicated outside of SharePoint, right here in SharePoint, I can define these simple actions, which are just based on an if this, then that type of rule. So for example, when a new record gets created, I want to write an entry into that history section. So I just put a rule in here to set a value to the history field at the time this is added. And then that rule shows up at the top of the interface. It's the, the first one at the top. And then I want to do similar things. I'll show you another different type of rule. I want a PDF report to happen when the report gets approved. So I created a template for that. And this just tells the system that once this is approved, when status after change equals approved, I want it to create a PDF using a template that I made and send that to the report PDFs library. Now, creating the print templates, that's done in a separate section, really easy to use. You can just come in here and pick the fields that you want to show up on the print report. So I've already done that. Those are the columns listed here. And then I can do other formatting. So if I want to have a custom header or footer, I can put those in there. I can do things like control the margins on the outside of the page. I can change the orientation, all kinds of different things. Basically, I can get that printout to look however I want. Now, this is convenient because once that expense report has been finalized, really that information shouldn't change. So in a sense, it gives us a backup of the information. Now, it is true, I can just come in here and I can use our special print function and it will show me the printout this way. But what I've done is automated those steps. So I've just told the system, hey, I don't want to click on that every time. I know I always want a PDF report whenever the expense report gets approved. And so I just created this rule, and that means that every single time that it gets approved, it will auto-generate that. Notice I even have it set up to dynamically name it. So it has the name of the expense report, the date it was approved, and who that's for. And so it's just going to automatically keep these PDFs for me. And needless to say, there is no form of PDF generation in out-of-the-box SharePoint. That doesn't exist. So this is quite handy because printing often comes into play. Now, I did set up some special links from the home page. These just take users to filtered pages. You may have concerns where you just want users to see their own expense reports and that type of thing. So this My Reports view will just come in and take me to a page where it'll just show me the reports that are mine. So there's some different approaches you can take there, but the bottom line is, yes, you can restrict access. You can make it where users only see their own reports, and you could make that happen for your regular employees and then provide admin views for your other users. So I guess, the biggest thing that excites me about this system is I do have a customer I work with, and they have this system set up. They're using it right now. Their employees are always out in the field, so they don't have a laptop computer handy. And the process of getting reimbursed for expenses, usually it's a big hassle for them, and they've got to save up all those receipts and then try to gather that all together, and it's really time consuming. And of course, it's easy to forget things. It's hard to remember what happened a couple of days ago, let alone a week or 2 weeks or a month ago. Whereas this system really gives the ability for all employees to capture those expenses as it's happening. So they don't have to worry about losing it. And it's really done in a way where they can just work on this all the time. So anytime they do have a new expense, they can just come to their dashboard, they can open the report, add that expense and receipt, and be on their way. And the camera function especially is really cool. Now, I didn't say it earlier, but this solution, this fully built solution is going to be loaded to our site. It will be available later today. All you need to be able to download and run the solution is our free trial software, if you're not already our customer. To do that, after you've installed our trial software, you'll go into this menu and click on Install Business Solutions, and it will be listed as the first item under Infowise Webinars. You can see here we have the time tracking system that we did from last month. So you don't have to rebuild everything I showed. Now, what's cool is you can install that and you could then modify that and you could adjust it and add or remove things or change it to suit your needs, however you want. So that's a really cool option. And also, I'm going to upload a recording of our session to YouTube, so that should help you out. Now, of course, you do have to get the software first. In terms of looking at that's the most important thing you can do. That's going to be what helps make a decision. So in the upper right, you can just click on Quick Start. Now, if you do have questions, if you have a project or a system or specific things you want to talk to us about, you can sign up for a demo and we'll set up a web meeting and talk to you one-on-one. So that's in the Quick Start under number 1. And if you're ready, you can then do the installation and just go to number 3, click on Download. The process is a little different depending on whether you're using SharePoint Online or on-premise SharePoint, but it is our full software. It's not limited in any way other than it's a 30-day trial. So that is the best thing you can do because then you can try out these tools and begin to see how it works, and it'll help you, understand how that lets you kind of solve some of your problems in terms of doing custom forms and business processes. So that's really important. So I do want to talk about some of the questions, but just so that I don't forget, before I get into that, I do want to make sure we give away our shirt. So we'll go ahead and do the drawing for that now. You need to give me a number from 1 to 100. Please guess one time. And I'm going to give a winner here in about 30 seconds. And I want to reiterate, this is only for people in the United States. Okay, give about 5 more seconds, then we'll go ahead and announce a winner. Okay, looks like Debbie Watson is our winner today. Thanks, Debbie. Please send me an email to willc@infowisesolutions.com. That's WILLC. And I need your address and shirt size. I'll make sure I mail that out to you today. So that takes care of that. Let me look at some of the other questions. I'll try to comment on that. All right, we got some good questions, and my colleague answered some of them, but I just want to address some of those quick. Okay. No, somebody asked if this is customized by Power Apps. No, this would be an alternative to that, a much easier and faster option instead of using Power Apps. So if you've used Power Apps and been frustrated, with that. A lot of us have been through that experience. What I demonstrated today is an alternative path to build custom forms without having to use Power Apps. So that's kind of the cool thing. Without these tools, you would probably try to have to use Power Apps to do a mobile form, but this is a lot faster and easier approach than that. And I only say this because I've worked with that platform pretty extensively, and I can only comment that it's developer oriented, generally pretty time consuming to do custom forms in that platform. Can you copy expenses? I'm sure that you can. That would be a custom function. It's not in the tool that I demonstrated, but certainly we have a copy function under our actions, and you can make that work. Can you transfer to an Excel worksheet? Yeah, in the print customization, we do have an Excel option, and you can print out to Excel, so that is a possibility. Oh, there was a question about the 5,000 items. Basically, in any kind of list, once you get over the list view threshold, things can be challenging. In terms of dealing with expense reports and lines, I think that could be accommodated through filter views and things like that. But there isn't anything about the solution I demonstrated that has any special limitations on that. So I definitely think that could be dealt with easily. What happens if they cancel the request? Well, there is a cancel option. Notice I had a status, or you could delete that. So you could delete those items. If you create records in a list, yes, they are there, but it's easy enough to delete those. But yes, that associated items list, it is a separate SharePoint list, and if you create items on that, that would probably be a pretty unusual situation. If somebody builds an expense report and starts doing that, they may add or remove items, but that would be an unusual situation. Can you import charges? If you were going to do, this isn't set up to do an import per se, but I guess one thing I would comment to you, hopefully you saw that really it was just a few fields to fill out per line item. We do have an option where you can do an inline entry, which is even faster. So that would be really more of a custom system. This is really geared more around entering the expenses as you take them one by one. Can you make the PDF include the JPEG receipt attachments? They can be embedded, and you can also have them automatically go out with the automated emails. One consideration is how many files there are and actually the raw file size. So I have done both of those things. It is possible. Is the history section a column in the SharePoint list? No, this is, I think you might be asking about version tracking, and I did not use version tracking. I used actions to automatically record into that. So generally the way that worked is I made an action that listened for certain changes, such as submitting the expenses, and it just writes an entry into a field that I called history, and it just appends to that field. So it's a custom kind of functionality I set up. I tend to like this approach because it's more explicit. When you turn on version tracking, it's not customized. I can't customize the message, and it logs every single modification to the list. So I don't tend to find that real user-friendly, whereas what I was demonstrating, it's logging just the cases that I care about, like when the report gets approved or submitted, stuff like that. So it is in the tool. You can see that if you download the solution, and you can play with it and see how that works. No, this isn't connected to credit card feeds. Let's see. All right, so that kind of covers most of the questions. If we didn't address your questions sufficiently or you have more, please follow up. You can email me directly if you want. Again, that's willc@infowisesolutions.com, or you can reach out to us by scheduling a demo. And when we do a demo, basically that'll be a web meeting, and we'll talk with you one-on-one. And that would be an opportunity to answer any questions about the product, any questions about the trial capabilities, that type of thing. As I say, the most important thing for you is to install a trial of the product, because then you get to use it. You get to do all this fun stuff I demonstrated. And also, it'll let you go into the interface under the business solutions, and you can download and install the system I just demonstrated to you onto a practice site in your own SharePoint tenant, so you can actually use this yourself and see exactly how it works. Okay, that's everything that I have to cover for today. I really appreciate everybody's time. Again, I will have this uploaded, both the solution and recording the presentation later today. And thank you again. We'll have another presentation next month, so we'll send out information on that very soon. And thanks a lot for your time. I hope you guys found this beneficial. Take care.